Oh, Laverne and Shirley, man. Solid.
Yeah.
Give us any rule, we'll break it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to make our dreams come true.
Damn right.
Yeah.
You know what, Colin? That's what we're going to do. We're going to make our dreams come true.
Well, good. This will be a hell of a podcast then.
I'm Arizona Family political editor Dennis Welch.
Dennis, fake news Welch. Try to tell the truth.
And this is the Politics Unplugged podcast.
Dennis, if you have a problem with substance abuse, I am more than willing to talk to you anytime you need.
And welcome to the Politics Unplugged podcast edition. And welcome back. I want to extend a welcome back to Barrett Marson. I want to thank you very much for returning with your talents to the podcast.
You know, Dennis, this is definitely in the top two of things I do for you. Politics Unplugged and then the Politics Unplugged podcast. So this is absolutely in the top two.
Thank you so much. And then first time ever, Matt Grodsky.
Happy to be here.
He's the Democrat here, and he's by far outdressed both of us.
Yeah, just honored to be in Barrett's presence, though. So.
I'm just glad Barrett has pants on.
That's good. That's good.
You know, I was going to wear my Mickey Mantle jersey in honor of the Yankees, who will go on to win the World Series in a week or so, but I decided to be a little classier for the Politics Unplugged listeners.
Yeah.
As
Yankees versus Dodgers.
That's
Raise your
gonna be a
hand
great
if you
series.
raise your hand if you're rooting for a draw.
Oh, no, it's going to be a great series. Yankees are going to take it in maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah, because that's
it's
what the
going to be
Yankees
exciting.
need.
Ohtani versus Judge.
Yeah, Yankees need another World Series championship.
Yeah, sure.
28's a good number.
Yeah, good Lord. Okay, let's not get sucked down that whole thing. We're here to talk about some politics, right? Right, guys? What I thought.
I mean, noon on a Friday, I almost should be eating lunch, and there's no lunch provided here, so I guess we'll just talk about
right. Yeah,
budget cuts.
Barrett once again, his ritual was complaining about us not providing him with a free meal. It's he's got his hand out.
Well, when you want my time for free, my very valuable time, I might add, and it's at lunchtime, and you don't bring me some pizza, I mean, come on.
It's that whole, but that goes against that goes against your Republican ethics, man. Your ethos.
I was just gonna say,
pull
he's
yourself
looking for
up pull yourself up from the bootstrap. Rugged individualism, Barrett.
Dennis, I regret to inform you, we will be forming a union of guests.
Wow.
We're going to organize, and one of our demands will be lunch for every Politics Unplugged podcast that we do.
All right. I can't wait to see that. While you're forming that union there on the phone, let's start off with let's talk about the big races in Arizona and nationally. Obviously, give us your perspectives on the state of the races here. Let's start with the presidential race. We had a new poll come out from High Ground this week, essentially showing that if you look over the past several polls, Trump has been trending upwards. He now holds a less than a 1% lead over Harris heading into the final week. So essentially, we can call this a dead heat. What's your guys' take on the race right now?
Well, I think you're going to see a very close race either way. We have seen a lot of polls of Trump up less than 2 and Harris up also less than 2. It has been trending, I think, Trump's way, and I think he has better tailwinds. And quite frankly, Harris has some headwinds. Mm-hmm. Obviously, she wins on the abortion issue. There's obviously no doubt about that. But on the two real issues that a lot of Arizonans are concerned about, the economy and inflation, and then border security, Trump is leading. It's pure and simple. And if they vote with their pocketbooks, they're going to vote for Trump.
Mm-hmm. And Matt, what's your take on it?
Well, I think polls have consistently been close, which we know and recognize. But I think at the end of the day, there could be an undercurrent of enthusiasm for Harris that polls aren't capturing, very much the same way we've seen that with Trump in elections past. Now, it's going to be tight one way or the other. It was tight in 2020. We are expecting nothing different this time. But, I mean, if you've been seeing what she's been doing the last several months, I mean, she's been coming out here. Crowds are excited. Surrogates are excited. People are pumped up. I'm not certain that the hand-wringing about the returns that we've been seeing in the Twitterverse are as dire as some people are suggesting that they are, but it remains to be seen. 2 weeks to go.
I don't know if it's dire, but I will say, welcome to 2012, people. I mean, Republicans are leading in early voting, just like we have done historically.
Right.
And
to my point, it's like we're back to 2018 type of behavior, pre-pandemic, pre-big lie. So I don't think it's something to stress about.
That's something we've seen with early ballot returns, right? With the Republicans, the question is, do Democrats revert? Do they have the bigger day of turnout? Right.
Well, but the thing with that is, if we do quote revert back to the good old days, if you will, pre-2018. Republicans ran the show, right?
However, asterisk, the big crossover potential for
there is a
never Trump Republicans.
There is, and that's a good, couple 5%, that there's no doubt about that. But such heavy Republican returns, I think, bodes well for Trump and most Republicans, except one of Dennis's absolute favorites, Carrie Lake. I don't think her race is worth saving, or is going to be able to be saved.
Wow. I would agree with that. Although I do think it'll naturally tighten as we get closer. I don't think anything's completely in the bag yet, but she has lit herself on fire pretty well. So we'll see.
But what is happening? Because obviously the Senate race, the polls have been showing. I mean, some double-digit leads here for Ruben Gallego. Why is people like Ruben Gallego outperforming Harris? Why is Trump outperforming Carrie Lake? What is going on with these races?
I think it's to know Carrie Lake is to dislike Carrie Lake, and she has lost a lot of Republicans and right-leaning independents, not just with her election denialism, but also her taking out Jeff DeWitt, for instance. I think that angered a lot of inside Republican people, and so that has hurt her. She's been hurt also with the flip-flop, and actually, quite frankly, I don't even know where she stands on abortion, but she's been hurt by that she had no core. It showed people that she had no core in her beliefs.
Well, is it also like a lack of political imagination when it comes to Lake? Because she got a lot of attention when she comes out as the former anchor who attacks the news media, but and she's also been 100% behind Donald Trump, America First, MAGA, all this other stuff, and she hasn't done anything different.
Right, but Dennis, here's the thing: the difference between, say, Donald Trump and Carrie Lake. I was driving on my way over here. I had a few red lights. I was a couple of minutes late. For full disclosure to the audience,
wasn't prepared.
Wasn't prepared, I guess. But I was listening. I was listening to Donald Trump on CNN in preparation for this show, and Donald Trump can get on CNN, NBC, CBS, whatever station he wants. He could call into any station anytime. Carrie Lake gets a story a month. Right? She's not ubiquitous. She's not on our TV. She might be on RBSN or One American News or whatever. But how many people does that actually reach? But she is not as well known, or she doesn't get on TV, which is where you're at, where it's all at, like, say, Trump can. And so people only see the negative of Carrie Lake a lot, and they don't see the positive. And because of a huge disparity in financial resources, they're seeing Ruben Gallego positive and Carrie Lake negative much more than they're seeing anything from Carrie Lake.
And jump in, man.
I agree with all that. I just think the other variable that we should consider. Ooh, bold statement. I like that.
Wow. I think the job now is to find some disagreement between you two.
We'll get there.
Which shouldn't be too hard. One shows up on time and is punctual.
Right. Hitting the green lights for
and
one.
Then Barrett.
Well, no, I just think misogyny is another thing to factor in there. I don't think we should overlook that. I mean, you see Harris and Lake, right? Tight race at the presidential. Lake is behind Rubin and Trump. They're men, right? I think that's an element that we should consider, especially with swing voters, is how do they view women politicians at this day and age, which is a sad commentary, but I don't think it's a factor you can discount.
Let me ask you, too, about particularly when it comes to the presidential race, the role of the media in this and what kind of a job collectively us in the media we've been doing. Has it been a good job? Has it been a bad job? Are there double standards? Start with you, Barrett.
Yeah, it's definitely been a job.
It's been a job.
It's been
good
a job.
Or bad?
Yeah.
Has there been fair coverage? Has there been good coverage of this race?
Probably not fair. Look, I did not vote for Donald Trump on this 2024 ballot, and in fact, I have never voted for Donald Trump on a ballot. But I do think the media overlooks his policy ideas. They overlook, who he is, and only focus on. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a focus on, some of his Hitler stuff and J6 stuff and all those negative things that I absolutely agree ought to be covered and talked about. But there isn't the coverage in the mainstream media of like what a Trump presidency will really look like. The tax issues that he is championing, tariffs, obviously, but what he will do policy-wise in a second term, it's all focused on some of his worst tendencies, and I'm not saying those aren't worthy of coverage.
Well, I'm interested though, and I'll get Matt's take on this, and whether it's maybe the opposite. I've heard some criticism from folks, from Never Trumpers and whatnot, who think that the media does not pay enough attention to some of the more interesting moments of Donald Trump, like his former chief of staff saying that Donald Trump wishes he had generals like Hitler.
Well, it could have been Bismarck.
That there should be more attention given to those types of stories. Him standing on stage dancing and having a dance party for 38 minutes. Some other comments. He said, sharks and electric batteries and electrocution and weird things he said like that. What's your take?
I think there's a double standard. I mean, I think, look, we've been 9 years at this now, and I think, unfortunately, we've gotten used to some of the absurd things that he says, so it starts to become discounted, and people don't give it the credence that they should. But I also think if you look at the coverage of Harris, right, from a national level, from the media's perspective, she's got to be crystal clear on her policies. They're vetting every aspect of that. Yet he can go out and, start doing stuff at McDonald's, and that's newsworthy, right? No one's questioning him on his policy ideals, on his substance. So there is a double standard from that perspective, which honestly goes back to 2020 coverage and 2016 coverage. So I don't think they've completely learned their lesson yet.
Well, here's the problem is Harris has been a chameleon on policy, and, we've seen her go from, supporting letting illegal immigrants stay here in America to now oppose it. So she has changed her position on so many things from 2019, 2020. I think it is valid to have her explain. And remember, obviously she's only been a candidate for less than 100 days. She wasn't vetted from a policy perspective in a primary like most candidates are. So I do think that it is very fair to tackle her on what are you going to do. And Trump, I think he should be pressed a bit more on policy plans, but it's too good to just listen to him riff. Riffing Trump is my favorite Trump because God only knows what he's going to say when he's riffing Trump. And, we were regaled, one of the great stories of this whole presidential campaign, Arnold Palmer in the shower.
God.
I think that was a wonderful story that he told, heartwarming story, as a matter of fact, what he
That's my
talked
point.
about.
Okay, so we need to, parse through every level of our economic plan, but then let's focus on this Arnold Palmer thing, and that's going to get
He wants
the
a
focus
fact
right.
check over here
Well,
on
it's just
Arnold
it's
Palmer.
just like, oh,
and
we'll
his-
cover that,
and
but
his
then we're going to scrutinize this. I
palm
think the other
tree.
thing on the chameleon comment, I mean, this is a guy who used to, completely worship the Clintons and wanted to be at every Democratic Party when he was in New York. So talk about a total
and-
shift.
Well, look,
Yeah.
and Trump has had more positions on abortion than one could count.
All right, and apparently he's the father of IVF, so that's
I
exciting.
bet he doesn't know what IVF stands for, which is also which would track because I don't think he knows the names of all his kids
Yeah,
either.
that's-
Tiffany probably escapes him, I'm sure. But
Give him lunch.
yeah, give me lies. This
Man.
is what happens when I get hangry.
Wow.
So yes, Donald Trump gets a pass on some of that, but not because he's a man or not because he's been around. It's because there's so many other entertaining things about him that you only want to go to 38 minutes of dancing to Ave Maria and YMCA and things like that. Like that is too much fodder. That's really good fodder for the media. So I understand it, and I completely disagree with it, but I understand why the media does that.
Yeah, but has there been enough focus on that? Because I feel like some of those stories barely get a full news cycle and then moves on to something else. And I've also heard a lot of criticisms for that reason, that there should be a lot more of a focus about the stakes of the race, not so much just the polling of the race.
Yeah.
Obviously, we just started off our conversation talking about polling.
One thing I think Matt would absolutely agree with me on, because I am totally right about this,
see.
is that we live in an era of a low information voter. I don't know if Channel 3 broadcast every wacky comment from Donald Trump that it would reach the low information voter anyway. And so,
It might reach a voter who gets most of their political news, let's say on cable, or on more alternative news outlets.
Yeah.
Because you can go into the Republican news sphere and not see any of this other stuff on Donald Trump. And you can go into the Democratic news sphere and see only like how crazy Donald Trump is.
Absolutely.
So, I still think there's some polling that I've seen that shows that local media still has some trust amongst voters.
I think that's right.
But I just think that they, real people, are busy in life. They come home from work.
They are.
They got to take the kid to basketball practice. They got to make dinner. They got to decide, are we going to be able to take the kids on vacation at Christmas time or summertime, whatever, things like that. And, I got to sit back and decompress and watch The Bachelor for an hour. I just don't think they have time to
But I think
always...
that's part of the problem, though, is this just complete digression in critical thinking and curiosity. And I think there used to be kind of an inherent civic duty among people generations ago to pay attention to these things and have real conversations and real opinions about real. You remember back when you used to debate like tort reform and things like that? Like, we're not having that conversation. Now. We're light years away.
It also
from
seemed
that.
like when we were kids, at least Barrett and I, our kids were a little bit older than Matt over there.
wee bit.
The young guy at the table. It was always about go out and vote. It was encouraging people to go out and vote. It seemed like there were just a lot of lower turnout elections.
Yeah.
But the last couple of elections here in Arizona, you're seeing 80% of registered voters. And I think this year you're going to see in that same realm. It's going to be very high turnout. We're already seeing, Republicans returning ballots at a higher rate. And I think that's...
What a great transition to the next topic, Barrett.
I'm all about transitions.
Jesus, Barrett.
Oh, boy.
Wow.
Getting dangerous now.
We may have to start editing this pod,
I was going to say.
But, you are seeing a higher return for Republicans, like the good old days. And I get a text message almost every single day from Donald Trump personally.
He knows you.
He knows me.
A handcrafted text.
It's a handcraft. It says, "Hey, it's Donald here,"
Yeah.
And encouraging me to vote early. This is from the guy who says voting early is akin to the devil worship, and so you're starting to see Republicans are listening to him. They're listening to Republican elders, and they are voting early. And I think that's important to bank those votes, to act like Republicans have for a generation here in this state.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about those early ballot returns. What are you seeing in the numbers there? First, let's start with would be concerning for you as a Democrat, and then maybe and then transition and then talk a little bit about what any positive signs you see for being a Democrat.
Yeah, I think at face value, when you see that Republicans are outpacing Democrats, that's when we all start to get nervous and jump around and hide under the desk. But I think to our earlier point, it's a return to pre-pandemic, pre-big lie behavior, back where it's more Democrats being day of voters, later voters, and Republicans being the early ones. I also think you have to take into account, and we haven't really chatted about this yet, is the length of the ballot this time around.
Oh boy,
Democrats, we love our research, man. We love to look at every race and every judge and work that Google machine. And I think Republicans, to your party's credit, are much better about we're following the guide that we got. We're going to go straight down, put it in the mailbox, good to go. So we're taking our sweet time with
Yeah.
it. So
That's a humble brag. Look
Yeah.
at him with the Democratic humble brag. We like to do our homework.
right.
Yeah. Well, they can sit and do their homework and then forget to vote. But it took me, an informed voter who knew almost every race on my ballot and every proposition and how I was going to vote. It took me 16 minutes just to fill in the bubbles. I timed it. That's a long time. And I think the problem is going to be on election day when there's a line of 100 people and in a vote at a voting location and there's 10 stalls, 10 10 corners to vote in setups and
Voting booths.
Voting booths. Thank you.
He's hungry.
Yeah, I was hungry. I can, there are 10 voting booths, and it's going to take everyone 20 minutes to vote. That you're going to sit out there for a couple hours, and God forbid
Thank
it's
the Republican legislature for that.
95 degrees, or hopefully it's not raining. I mean, you hope that the weather is fine, but it is going to. There are going to be long lines. There are going to be pissed off voters, and to that I say, I did it from my kitchen table. Why couldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's one of my a relative of mine who shall remain nameless wants to take her young baby to a voting center on election day.
That's
for
mean.
Because of the nostalgia.
Get him in the
of it all.
habit. Get him in the habit early, right?
And that's great. That's all well and good, except you're going to stand out there with this little baby, who's a gorgeous little baby, by the way, and you're going to stand out there, and it could be an hour that you're out there. That baby is not going to want to stand out there for an hour, and you're going to maybe have to leave the line, and then are you going to come back to vote? I think that's a real issue. It was a real issue in 22 when there were long lines and people got fed up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to be an issue here through no fault of anyone other than you didn't want to vote early. Vote early works. It's safe. It's transparent.
Yep. And it's the message from the Trump campaign this time around. I mean,
Yes.
the rally the other day I went to at Mullet Arena in Tempe on the campus of ASU. Right above the stage where he was at, front and center, there was a sign that said "Vote early."
That's great.
Yeah. They learned their lesson from last time.
180-degree turnaround from 4 years ago.
Absolutely.
When he was just
2 years ago and 4 years ago, Republicans ran the table in previous elections by voting early. And if they go back to that, we should do well come 10 days from now.
Maybe. That pattern of behavior was still in place in 2018, and we had a pretty good 2018. I still think you got to consider the crossover Republican vote. I do think it's higher than 5%. I think it could be as high as 10% with the amount of work that's gone into that. You got to remember, he lost Arizona, and that was pre-January 6th. That was before the abortion ban, the IVF, I'm the father of that, all the other ridiculous things that have
But it
happened
was also
since.
pre-13% inflation in Phoenix. Dismiss that all you want. Voters really care about rent, about mortgage payments, about the ability to move, about gas prices, egg prices.
I don't disagree with that. I think that the mindset of the voter is very much, how am I doing right now? And I
Right.
do think it's fall. I mean, I had
and
this
they
conversation
cannot
months
afford,
ago.
and they cannot afford to move into a bigger home. They can't afford to
Yeah.
buy their first home. They can barely afford rent in their 2-bedroom apartment.
Right. I
So
think-
I agree with you there, and
I-
it's not good for Harris.
Yeah, and I think and have thought for a while now that housing is at the heart of all the issues and some of the anxiety and angst out there because, particularly here in Arizona, what's happened to the housing market is just incredible. 10 years ago, you could buy a house here.
Mm-hmm.
If you're,
Between the interest rates and the appreciation and value, appreciation and value is great. I love it as a current homeowner. But if I was, in an apartment trying to get my first home, a starter home, and it's a 6.5% to 7% interest rate on a $400,000, it's just unattainable.
Yeah, no, but it's a hard thing to message on, right? I mean, it's hard to say that, hey, you're in that situation because the last guy downplayed a pandemic that destroyed the economy and people were dying 4 years ago, and now we're dealing with the
because of the
repercussions of
monetary
that.
and what's Trump's housing plan? I think
Right.
he was asked one time and he said, "Drill, baby,
Getting
drill."
back to, he probably has the concept
Tariffs.
of a plan.
Tariffs.
Yeah, tariffs.
Tariffs.
Tariffs will pay. I mean,
Right.
Look, I've got there are significant criticisms for both candidates in their housing plan. I don't think either one is really dealing with it in any significant way. But Trump's plan is just.
There is no plan.
Let's say he follows through on his deportation plan. I mean, people have pointed out, well, the construction labor force is made up and depends on a lot of illegal migrants working there. What is that going to do to building? How because the housing situation right now is a supply demand. You need to build more houses.
Right.
Maybe his Hitler generals will build all the houses for him. Maybe that's the plan.
Well,
I don't know.
the one of the issues that Trump just fundamentally gets wrong, one of the many, is like, okay, if we deport 20 million illegal immigrants, 30 million, 100 million, however many there are, that number changes and goes up every day with him.
Yeah.
it's not like they're living in PV or North Scottsdale or, Arrowhead Lakes of Glendale. They're living in, let's face it, a lot of South Phoenix, a lot of places, that it's not like, white families are going to start moving into.
You mean they're not leaving Central America because of a deal they saw on Zillow?
Yeah.
Gotta get you a drum set.
Yeah. So, if you deport all the illegal immigrants, there'll be a lot more housing available, I guess, but it's probably in somewhat undesirable areas.
Yeah.
Again would bring down prices
But to your
and all
point,
that,
in the right wing ecosystem, who's calling them on that? Who's having that actual legit policy analysis conversation instead of just trumpeting the talking points?
yeah,
right?
look, a problem I have today is we don't do a lot of discussion of policy around here.
No.
There's just not. Well, let's talk about polls, but let's not talk about policy.
Yeah,
and that's an issue. And I do enjoy sometimes when we get, like, quite frankly, the vice presidential debate I thought was full of good policy, and it was panned, right? Like, there was Minnesota nice or Midwestern nice.
I don't think it was panned.
I think it was
calling
panned.
it Midwestern.
People
nice.
were upset that there weren't fireworks.
Yeah,
right?
I think people were upset
they
that
were
there
mad
was
that it
no.
took 88 minutes for him to kind of get Vance in a zinger, right?
Yeah.
So,
No,
All right. I've got to move because we're running up, getting close to time here.
it's a podcast. Can't we go for like 6 hours?
We could,
Okay, there we go. All right.
but should we?
I mean, in
No.
6 hours, then
He's just
we'll
getting
have
warmed up.
it'll be dinner time, and maybe you'll actually bring me dinner.
Yeah. How about we see how hangry?
Oh,
I like
Jesus.
that. Yeah, I like that. We'll call it Barrett Unplugged next.
Like an hour from now, he's just pulling out a knife, going, "I will cut you guys."
And fry you.
So let's shift now. Let's talk about this congressional race. It's really kind of just popped up out of really kind of nowhere. It wasn't like a big race heading into the cycle. Like, you got to watch this Nez Crane race. All of a sudden there was a poll by the Noble Predictive that showed Jonathan Nez and Eli Crane, the incumbent Republican, are in a dead heat in this congressional race. And then, like, within hours, we're getting inundated with ads on TV and everywhere.
And Cook changed their rating of it, all that stuff.
What the hell's happening
Well, I
here?
think Democrats have done a very good job of messaging with tribal communities. I do think the fact that Nez is running has woken up a part of the electorate that normally kind of abstains from voting. I think Crane has not done himself favors with some of the comments he's made on the House floor. But I also think, you look at what Gallego's done by going down to Havasupai, right, engaging directly with voters. And you've got Waltz going this weekend, I believe, to Window Rock. So they've constantly done these touch points. You had Biden in town; he's doing the apology for the boarding schools, all that. So there's actual messaging that's going and talking to these voters, and I think you're seeing the product of that.
Something that definitely is in Crane's favor is Nez's favor. Something that's probably in Nez's favor is it's kind of hard to poll the reservation. And so if he's tied with, probably an underrepresentation of the reservation, that bodes very well for him. That district, I've worked that district a couple of times, a couple of losing candidates, and it was just impossible for Republicans to solve the Navajo issue. Crane didn't necessarily do that, but after redistricting, it became a little bit more red, and so that was a big help. But at its heart, that is a Democratic district, though many of those Democrats are conservative Democrats. So it's an interesting race. It's fascinating.
I've heard from people in there that Nez is extremely popular up there.
Yeah, and he's had people that have worked in his administration, I believe, that kind of fell more into that Trump.
What would
camp.
be the issue, the congressional issue, the federal on this that is driving this race?
One thing I want to say again, after working that district a couple of times over the last decade, very few people in the Phoenix metro area can probably tell you the difference between a legislator and a congressman. But in that district, they know who their congressman is because so many issues are federal issues. They know their congressman. They've had to deal with that office, federal policy, because so much of that area is federally owned. They know their congressman. And I think that's a very it bodes well just for engagement, just for voting.
So maybe issue of Mr. Crane not representing that area well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to kind of these issues that are traditionally tied to federal policy, right? It's tribal sovereignty. I think there's the issue of rural infrastructure
There's
and
land issues,
health,
water,
right?
old school meat
water,
and potato issues, land,
Absolutely.
water, that kind of
Absolutely.
and healthcare
Healthcare.
too. You can't discount healthcare.
And I think those are important issues, and voters out there understand the issues and understand where the candidates come down on those issues. I've only seen a little bit of polling, so I'm not here making any predictions, and I don't know how well loved or hated that Eli Crane is, but I do think that he hasn't done much good by aligning with Biggs and Gosar and against Kevin McCarthy and really not getting
who
anything
are in
done.
very different districts.
Very
Very ruby red,
Absolutely.
lively Republican
Right.
districts, and you got to be careful because you got to represent the people that elected you.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And
No, I think
guess
it's-
that's
And I
very
think-
much in the air
and
right now.
Quite frankly, I think people like Gosar and Biggs actually do represent their districts.
I'm not laughing on that. I think he's
that's
100%
true. I
right.
think he's 100% right, and I think that if Crane loses, the reflection that they'll do is that it was a failure to moderate. He's aligned himself with people that are not representative of the core of his district, and I think that's the miss. So, no, I do agree.
All right, we'll have to wrap it up there, guys. But before I let you go, something we used to do that got away from, but someone asked me I should do this more with some of our guests, is ask the non-political question of some of our guests that come up here before we bring
Who
in.
will win the World Series?
Oh, God.
No, I'm not asking you that.
Because it's going to be the Yankees.
I'm just kind of curious as to, we're going back a couple weeks now to Donald Trump with his playlist and was up there dancing for 38 minutes and whatnot. If you had a playlist that you had to dance for 38 minutes to in front of a crowd, what's the number one track on that playlist for you, Barrett?
Probably a little Hotel California,
So you can't dance to Hotel California.
Oh, but I can air guitar the hell out of that.
I think you got to go with some Billy Joel on there. Why not?
I'm gonna,
You're going to dance to Piano Man?
Oh, yeah.
Or
You
Good
can
Night.
dance
You're gonna-
to Piano
You're going to
Man.
dance
Yeah.
to Good Night Saigon.
That one would be tricky.
Look at pulling that one out. Good Night
That
Saigon.
is one of
a
my
great
favorite
song.
Absolutely Joel
Absolutely great song.
Christmas in Fallujah.
No.
I don't know if you know that one.
I don't
That's
know.
a happy one.
Oh, man.
just terrified of the presidential candidate now air guitaring to Eagles songs. The next,
Me and Joe Walsh, man, we're simpatico.
well, you're lucky you didn't pull out Eric Clapton, so you would have met some resistance on that one.
Yeah, Sunshine of Your Love is the number 2 song in that rotation.
All right, you sticking with the Billy Joel thing? Where are you going?
I think
there,
we
man?
got to go Billy Joel, man.
Yeah.
That feels fun, especially if it's for that long. The song length works for you.
All right.
The crowd will be with you. Can't go wrong. We'll poll it later and see.
You're not pulling a Slayer.
No Rush. That is my only demand. No Rush.
Man, we could do a whole pod in my disdain for Rush.
All right.
Maybe next week.
Maybe
next time we all
Maybe
get
next
together.
time. Maybe next time we'll have some pizza. We'll talk Rush.
Meals.
Put it in the suggestion box on your way out.
Yeah. Matt Grodsky, Barrett Marson, thank you both
Have a
for
great
having
weekend.
us. And welcome back to the second half of the Politics Unplugged podcast. As always, the producer extraordinaire, Colin Stan. Stan, say hey to the people.
Always a pleasure. Thanks. Good to be here.
And let's start off with, again, your political play, political moments of the week, things you've noticed back here doing your producer magic.
You guys actually touched on that already in the first half. And what's been getting me in the past week is just like the complete abdication of responsibility by the national media covering the races and covering issues that come up in the race. It's just mind-boggling, the stuff I'm seeing. The one that really pissed me off was the New York Times article that said that Trump appeared in Pennsylvania and regaled the crowd with golf stories for the first 10 minutes.
This was the... Yeah.
They weren't golf stories.
No, they were shower stories.
Yes, he was talking about Arnold Palmer's penis.
Mm-hmm.
And the New York Times called it golf stories. And the reporter started getting flack online, and the reporter's response was, "Hey, talk to my editor. I wrote what he did. They wouldn't print what he did. They printed golf stories. Talk to them."
No.
And then the other one that got me was, did you see the NBC News story about officials are looking for 600 people in connection with a Venezuelan gang in the U.S.?
Mm-hmm.
That headline was everywhere. They would need 600 people in connection with a Venezuelan gang. And then if you read deep into the article, you find out what in connection with means. Because that 600 includes victims and it includes witnesses.
It would be the bulk of the 600.
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be the bulk of the 600. And so while we're still hearing the stories about the Venezuelan gangs conquering entire cities, and
Aurora,
yes,
eating
that
cats and
are
dogs.
entirely false.
Yeah.
NBC News pops that out, and it's the headline, which is all most people are going to see about that. The headline's bullshit.
And it's bullshit clickbait.
Yes.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah, I see that too, and I'm guilty of some of that too. Just the discussion we just had. We didn't go deep on policy or specifics about any of the presidential candidates and what they say. We talked about polling.
Yeah.
And I get it. And definitely we want to be able to do more of that, and things I have to tell two sources all the time, like I don't have the time to get into every story I want to.
Yeah.
And so, judge me from what I don't do as opposed to what I do. That's fine. I get it. But I think when you're talking about like specific stories like the Arnold Palmer penis story, you have to write what the man said.
Yes. Say what he said. Don't say it's a golf story.
Yeah. And we've had discussions here over the years, particularly with, Donald Trump. He has said stuff. He's stuff that, typically in the past we would have beeped out, swear words and things like that. And the discussion has always been, do you beep it out? I mean, this guy wants to be president.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you do.
No, I don't think so either.
I'm not always on the winning side of that argument.
No,
but I don't think you do. If the big guy's, the president or trying to be president, people should hear what he's saying.
I think part of it, though, too, is this is like the old media just doesn't have the language, the tools to deal with how things have changed so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a lot of this stuff people are going to look at and go, I don't even know how to talk about that.
Yeah, as a young reporter, coming up in the business and in newspapers, the thing was, you don't want, you would say, Dennis, you don't want somebody spitting up their Cheerios because you read the paper in the morning, right? And we're so far from that.
Yeah.
Politicians say a lot of really wild stuff now.
Yeah.
And I think, these are people running to be our civic leaders. They're also, like it or not, running as like kind of role models.
Yeah.
The president of the United States is a role model, and how they comport themselves is important. And if you like the way that they comport themselves by talking about a dead golfer's penis, then that's great.
Yeah.
Vote for that guy.
Yeah.
If that's party, but we can't. You can't whitewash it. You can't sanitize it.
No. I'm totally agreed on that. And it's bothersome because I don't think the New York Times is always described as some sort of liberal paper. My God, the water they're carrying for Trump, stuff like that's amazing.
Here we are, man. About a week out from the election day, and he very well could be returning for a second tour of duty in the White House.
Yeah,
it's all possible out there. Let's move on and talk about something that's even. How do you want to say, like, even worse? Than the 2024 election cycle?
I mean, it certainly felt worse when I was sitting there watching it.
Yeah, it really was. I think last week I had signed you some homework. We brought up the movie Cats based on the play.
And it took me I was sitting there watching the thing trying to remember, why the hell am I doing this? How did this come up?
Yeah. I'm the one to blame.
Well, and it was because we talked about the Trump Dance Party playlist.
Yes.
And I think the final song on that was Memory from Cats.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided we should watch the Cats movie. Or we decided I should watch the Cats movie.
I think I decided you should watch
Okay, yeah, I think that's probably how that went down.
That sounds like a weenie bullshit move I would pull.
Yeah. No, it's about right.
Yeah.
So I watched it. I watched 3/4 of it. There were like 20 minutes left, and I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And like, I love bad movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm, mentioned before, I have everything Ed Wood Jr. did. People talk about Plan 9 from Outer Space being the worst movie of all time. And it's the best thing he did by a mile. Jim Cotta, I've seen The Room multiple times. The Tommy Wiseau film. I love those. So I'm down for a good bad film. This is not a good bad film. This is a bad film. This is terrible. Yeah. Everything about Cats the movie was just mind-bogglingly awful.
It was, and look, I took pity on you.
Yeah.
You started sending me text messages, like screen grabs of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, my God, what is going on?
Yeah.
So I decided to watch the movie myself.
Yeah.
And I got through exactly 56 minutes and 14 seconds.
Yeah. Which wasn't easy, man. It's not easy.
Because I want people to understand, like, look, I'm not the smartest or the brightest bulb. I had no fucking clue what was going on with that movie.
None. And you can look it up. You can look up a plot synopsis, like go to Wikipedia and read the plot. Doesn't help because it's all, it's a jellicle ball for jellicle cats to decide it. Like, kiss my ass with the jellicle thing. It's what?
Yeah, it's supposed to be like, so the plot synopsis is like the owners of this cat abandoned it, and like, okay, that explains the opening shot.
Yeah.
Right? There's this cat jumps out of the bag. So until you read the synopsis, you're like, why is this cat? Okay.
Yeah. And then it's just one weird, creepy cat person after another getting up and doing a song.
They all have human hands.
Yes. The CGI is grotesque. For whatever reason, they made the decision to use CGI to make people look like people in cat suits, but they're cats.
And the CGI with the dancing, I think I mentioned to you, like, it's like, okay, like the theater production, I could see, if you're not into the story, like, you could be entertained by the dance moves and the dancers on stage. Like, that would, could be very entertaining.
I could see that working for somebody.
Yeah, it could, maybe not me, but, like that could work.
Yes.
But the CGI dancing was just weird and awful.
Yes. It looks terrible. The film visually looks ugly and terrible. The CGI is terrible. The characters are they're just goddamn people in cat suits. It's not like, I didn't get any sense of character from any of it. The songs are bad. Like, everything about it is bad.
Very bad.
It lost like $115 million at the box office.
Not as much as it should have lost.
No. No.
There should have been a penalty tax, a bad movie tax.
Yeah. And I looked it up because I was like, the guy who directed this, who apparently was a jerk from what I read about it, I was wondering, like, what's he done since then? Like, what do you do after you create this just horrendous loser of an eyesore? And the answer is the biggest thing he's done since then is a McDonald's commercial, which was nice of him to throw him the bone there. I mean, it's
wow.
It's ghastly.
I was really struggling to find something remotely positive. There's not even a lot I could even make a joke of because it's that confusing of a movie that you're just like, what the hell?
Yeah. And then you start going, okay, wait, that's Dame Judi Dench.
Yeah.
Did she need the money that badly? This is a woman who started out doing Shakespeare in the live theater and has like 8 Oscar nominations. Yeah. And I believe she's won one. Yeah. And she's some goddamn cat.
Man, what you saw there was a version of Alec Guinness doing Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes.
Just looking for a payday, man.
Yeah, payday and some self-loathing. Ian McKellen's in it, although I think he's been cashing checks and not much else for like 20 years.
Yeah.
As a positive, I guess it didn't kill Taylor Swift's career. She's in it.
She's done quite well since then.
She's done quite well since then. On another positive, it may have killed James Corden's career because he hasn't done much since then.
No, and he wasn't even remotely amusing.
No.
He didn't even approach amusing in that.
No. As loathsome as people found him on TV, put him in a cat suit, you're still going to hate him.
Probably more.
Probably a little more. As you sit there slack-jawed going, how did someone thought this was good?
Someone greenlit that damn thing, man.
Yeah.
You know, and you hear all these stories about movies that were almost not made or took years to make. You know, like what was passed over for this? What was like, we're making a decision, we're going to make this movie instead of all these others or this movie.
Yeah. And the first time anyone saw the visual effects, what they saw what this film was going to look like, how did they say, yeah, sure, 2 hours of that. Let's go for it.
Yeah. You're on the right track, Dave. Or whatever the fucking director's name was. You're on the
I
right.
don't remember.
Love where you're going with this. Love your vision.
Yeah. Just the whole notion of the CGI human cats with human hands. The human hands were the killer, man.
Yeah, and they were all like this. They were like posing them like they were little cat paws. It still doesn't take away the fact that you have opposable thumbs.
Yeah. And at some point, they do a really poor job with Judi Dench because you can see the ring she was wearing. Yeah, so thumbs down for Cats the movie.
Yeah,
not recommended.
Heavy thumbs down. Like I was watching. I was like,
the opposable thumbs down.
Yeah, no, I got rid of that, and when I did, I went back and rewatched one of my Halloween traditions, which is Robert Mitchum in Night of the Hunter.
Oh, nice.
And then I felt better after that.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah,
great movie to watch around Halloween. It's about a guy who pretends to be a priest that hunts a couple of kids to kill them.
Nice.
What's not to love about a movie like that?
As long as he wasn't animated and singing and dancing with a little CGI tail flipping around, I'm down. That's all I'm asking.
James Corden in the role of Robert Mitchum in a cat suit. You see that?
Yeah.
Him licking his paws, yelling out, "Oh, kids, I can hear you."
Yeah. Yeah. Night of the Jellicle Hunter.
I just not enough badness I could throw that way for that movie.
No.
It was, again, like, I felt bad because you started watching it, you started sending me pictures, good on your part. Like, I'm like, look, man, spread the pain.
Yeah.
Spread the pain.
I'm not taking all of this.
So I'm like, all right, I'll
you will understand the sacrifice
in solidarity,
I'm making for
man.
this podcast.
In solidarity, man. Started watching it. I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to maybe a better topic. Sports.
Let's hope.
Suns started a new season.
Yeah.
It's
The season opener, as we taped this, the season opener was 2 nights ago.
Mm-hmm.
They play the Lakers tonight, which should be an interesting game.
On Friday night, right?
Yeah. So, yes, Friday night, Lakers. So we're taping before that.
Over the weekend, they play Mavericks, right?
Okay. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Long season.
Yeah, it's a long season. We should know because
we're the home of the
home
of the Suns.
The family is the home of the Suns.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I got the Lakers part right. The opener was against the Clippers. Cool to see the Clippers arena.
That arena was awesome.
Yeah, it's spectacular.
I love that wall.
Yeah, the wall's a cool thing. Did you see what the inspiration for that was?
No.
Borussia Dortmund in the
the black
Bundesliga.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
They have a wall of the crazed fans.
The
so they were
the Schwarz-Gelb.
Yes.
From the Bundesliga. Yeah. I always wanted to go. Next time I'm back there, and I wanted to try to make it to that particular stadium. Everybody wants to go see Bayern Munich. I say, screw that, man. That Dortmund place looks like it's a whole different kind of experience.
Yes.
You know, I would be so into that.
Yeah. But yeah, the arena looked cool, and the Suns looked okay. They won, so that was good.
Yeah, they won. I would say aesthetically, it was it was a better watch, like a better TV product. It was easier for me to watch than last year. And maybe I have so many that team was so incredibly frustrating to watch. That is all I remember is me being frustrating to watch that team.
Yeah.
That it felt like the ball movement was a little bit better this time around. That there wasn't a lot of dumb turnovers. There were turnovers.
There were plenty of turnovers.
But it's game one.
Yeah.
But they weren't like, there were turnovers last year with the Suns that would just left me like just speechless.
Yeah.
Like, why are you look like you passed the ball to the opponent?
Yeah. It looked like guys screwing around last year, and you don't seem to get that as much, at least from game one.
No.
I still see way too much ISO ball. Towards the end, it seemed like it was, Durant and Beal just taking turns.
Yeah.
Everyone clear out. Let's see what we can do. And I mean, particularly with Durant, it's effective because he's unstoppable.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily all that fun to watch. They got the win. The defense tightened up at the end. They were doing better at instead of just giving up switches to give that ended up in bad matchups. They managed to keep Durant on Harden when Harden was having a really good game, and that helped. So good to see the win. It'll be interesting to see the Lakers game. The Lakers look really good in their opener.
Yeah.
J.J. Redick appears to know what he's doing.
I say make sure Bronny gets a lot of minutes against the Suns. Though we've not broached that topic on this show. Is that kid, I wish him all the luck in the world.
Me too. I genuinely feel kind of bad for him.
Yes. But he has no business being on an NBA court.
He shouldn't.
Yet.
Yeah. He should be in the G League. I suspect he will spend most of the year in the G League. The thing with Bronny is, and I can come up with all kinds of reasons why last year in college, when he did not have a good year, you can make excuses. He had a heart attack to start the season.
Yeah.
So that's going to throw you off a little bit. The thing with Bronny is he's small.
Yeah.
And he doesn't
he doesn't do anything particularly well.
No, he doesn't. He's very athletic. He's a really good athlete. He can defend. He can do some things, but they're not anything that project to being an NBA player when you're like 6'1".
Yeah, you're not going to be a lockdown defender at 6'1".
No.
He is atrocious from beyond the arc in shooting.
Yeah. I mean, he needs to significantly improve there.
And you can, and we've seen numerous players do that. I mean, Jason Kidd could barely hit the backboard when he first got in the league and ended up being a pretty damn good shooter.
Yeah.
But that takes a lot of work and some time. I don't think he doesn't seem, from what I've seen, he doesn't have a good handle.
Yeah, it's not great. At his size, what you need to be is like Jalen Brunson. You need to be a guy with a really good shot who can drive, who can, you can hit from outside, you can distribute the ball. And that's just not really the type of player Bronny is. And the type of player Bronny is, if he works his ass off, makes him an NBA player if he's like 6'6".
Yeah.
If he's 6'1".
Yeah. I'm honest. Seriously, I wish him all the luck in the world. I don't hate the kid. I think it's unfortunate.
Agreed. And and there are probably people listening going, you feel sorry for the kid who's on an NBA roster and I think he's making like $3 million a year on a guaranteed 3-year deal. Yeah. I mean, he's a rich kid who's got a contract and he's there because he's LeBron's.
Everybody's got burdens.
Yeah. Well, and the flip side is he's a guy who knows as well as any of us that he does not belong on that floor right now.
Yeah.
And when something like that is just handed to you, it's not going to mean that much to you. No. I'd love to see him develop into a reasonable NBA player. I think the odds are kind of stacked against that. And there's just going to be such a focus on him the whole time that it's tough.
Because every year is going to be a whole new crop of players that probably deserve a spot on a roster more than he does.
Yeah.
But as far as overall with the Suns, getting back to them, I'm a little more hopeful. I think Coach Bud.
Yeah,
I think he's going to do well he's going to do wonders for this team. I think they're going to have more fun playing for him, and I think that's a big deal. The Suns just looked miserable all year last year. They did not look like they were having fun playing basketball.
they didn't at all.
And I think with him encouraging people to shoot more and do that, I think that could do wonders for this team, and I really hope so, because man, it's been a rough stretch for Phoenix sports fans.
Yeah. And I like some of the small additions they made. Tyus Jones is a good point guard, and they needed that.
Yeah.
So that was a great pickup.
Yeah. And he didn't need a great point guard. You needed a good point guard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they got that.
Yeah, you don't need a scorer. God knows you've got those. You need someone who can get the ball moving to distribute, and that's what they did.
Yeah. So, and Plumlee from the Clippers.
Yeah.
I always kind of liked him, man, because he's just such a big body, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. We've cycled through another big oafish white guy. AKA the Phoenix fan favorite.
He's always the fan favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, we lost Kaminsky.
Yeah.
But still have Mason Plumlee.
Yeah. And then speaking of local sports, thoughts on the Cardinals? They could go to 500 on Sunday when this pod drops.
Yeah.
They may be 500. They may not be 500 by the time this pod drops.
Yeah.
Thoughts on watching the Cardinals try to sack a guy who just came back from a serious head injury in Tua. I don't know if I want to watch this game, man.
I know. And it looks like a really good matchup for Miami, because like the Cardinals' pass defense does not look great, and you'd think Tyreek Hill can just shred them, but that's assuming Tua's 100%, and God knows the Tua thing is tough.
That's tough.
It's the type of thing that makes me feel a little bad about watching football.
Yeah.
And as much as everyone was saying he needs to retire, and I fully get that, it's easy for me to sit there and say, man, that guy needs to hang it up. He's got a whole life ahead of him. He's a football player. He's a young guy, and he's a football player. And that's all, that's what he's been.
Life.
And it's his life. And try and convince a 20-something football player that it's time to move on to whatever comes next.
And
it's tough. But, the thing that's really jarring when you watch him now isn't just that he keeps getting concussions. He's getting concussions on hits that aren't that bad.
Yeah, and they're particularly bad because he's always doing that. He ends up doing the fencing thing.
Yeah,
and it's tough. And again, I agree with you. It's like it's bad. It's hard to watch. It's why you feel a little guilty watching football. And the only thing to justify or to make myself feel better about this is he is making this decision with better information.
Yeah,
than 10 years ago.
That's true. Yeah.
So you're kind of going eyes wide open into this.
Yeah. This is not a generation that's going in not understanding the risk.
Yeah.
They're taking on the risk.
It
doesn't mean they're making a smart decision.
No. But they're eyes wide open.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tua knows the danger.
Yeah.
And he's choosing to do it.
It's not like the 80s where it's like you get knocked out and concussed. Like, get him some smelling salts.
Yeah.
And he'll be back 3 plays later, you know.
And we watch the replay over and over for laughs.
Yeah.
Like the Hall of Fame is filled with guys who are in the Hall of Fame for hits that would have them drummed out of the game now.
Well, I mean, have you seen that clip on the socials? It harkens back to the CBS NFL, the opening of the show every week with Brent Musburger and Irv Cross and Jimmy the Greek.
Yeah.
And every highlight on that opening of the show is like a flagrant foul that gets you kicked out of a game today.
Yeah.
And what I
Players
hate,
being reviewed for targeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Or the infamous like Terry Bradshaw sack where the guy just like picks him up and like suplexes.
Yeah.
Like, dude, no.
Yeah.
And what I hate is every now and then you'll see stuff like that on the socials and you'll see just jackasses who are like, it was better back then.
Yeah.
Like, you're a douche.
Yeah.
Like, just shut up, man.
And
because it wasn't better then.
People love the violence in football.
They do.
People love the violence. And it certainly wasn't better for the players.
It wasn't better. It wasn't a better watch though either.
Yeah.
I mean, like seriously, if you look at the scores today, you compare them because I remember a typical NFL game would be 14-10, 14-3. Defense wins championships.
Yeah.
I guess, but as a kid, it's like you want to see touchdowns.
Yeah.
I think it's a better TV product today than it was when I was growing up.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest about that, and it's still a violent game.
Yeah.
And it's try to put a good face on it. It's like, we're trying to make it safer. It's like it's never going to be a safe game.
No, it's not going to be a safe game. I mean, it's a team of people in heavy armaments bashing into each other. You can only make that so safe.
How safe is it when you got like someone who's like 6'5", 350, just throw,
who runs like a sprinter?
He runs like a sprinter and then launches himself. I mean, you can't launch yourself anymore because that's a foul now too. But it's still a possibility out there.
Yeah, yeah, There's no making it safe.
Anyway, we should probably wrap this up. I think we went way over time this week.
Probably. Yeah.
Maybe before we let you go, Oregon Ducks. Your Ducks playing anyone this year?
We've got Illinois at home tomorrow. Number 20 Illinois, I think, against the number 1 Oregon Ducks.
I think you guys will destroy the Illini. That's a basketball school, man.
Yeah,
that's basketball.
They're good this year. Ducks look really good, really good. Looked shaky on week 1 against Idaho. It was like a 10-point game. It was a lot closer than it should have been. Looked a little iffy week 2 against Boise State, but that was before we realized that Boise State's actually really good and has like a Heisman caliber running back.
Yep.
So I feel a little better about that game in retrospect. After that, we've been great. Knocked out Ohio State.
Yeah,
been really good. Beat the hell out of Purdue.
Just a move of legend in that Ohio State game by Lanning to make sure they get the 12-man penalty, so they run off an extra. Was it 6 seconds?
Something like that. Run time off the clock by getting an intentional 12-man penalty.
Just gangster move.
You've come up with something if they announce days afterwards that they're changing the enforcement of a rule.
Yeah.
I saw Urban Meyer in a clip. I think he was on a podcast or something.
Sure, he wasn't at a bar with
probably a podcast at a bar. And he was saying, now, people are telling me that thing Lanning did was intentional. He's intentionally taking a penalty there? Like, my God. When I was coaching, I was out there playing checkers. Their guys playing chess. Like, yeah.
Dude, God, my brother-in-law, big Ohio State fan, was just like really upset by that. But it's like, if your guy would have done that, you'd have been celebrating that for the rest of the year.
Yes.
Because that's some 3D chess stuff there for football, man.
Yeah.
I love the way your coach. I'm starting to become a fan of your coach.
Yeah. Oh, he's great.
He just asked about it. He's like, damn right I did that on purpose.
Yes.
I just love that. I just love the honesty. Like, like the Iowa coach, Kurt Finch, so old school. Like, he wouldn't comment on that.
Yeah.
Although, maybe he would this time. He's become a little more open over the years. But he wouldn't. He would just not answer the question. He'd be like, next question.
Yeah.
Do that.
No, Dan Lanning answers it.
No.
I love Dan Lanning. And we had a few guys who were there and used Oregon as a stepping stone to what they perceived at the time to be better programs.
Yeah.
Which are not.
No, Oregon's a great program.
Yes.
You got Phil Knight that will give you anything you want.
Yes. You can recruit, the facilities are mind-boggling. It's become like the cool program, with the uniforms and the success and the duck and all that. It's become like, the cool.
Well, the home games on TV look like just an amazing place.
They're amazing. They're the best program on the West Coast now. So you've got that. If you're a top player in LA and you have your choice between USC and Oregon is now the better program and has been for years.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff going there. But and so Lanning, and Lanning came up with the Alabama job. He was the first name everyone brought up, and he was totally straightforward, saying, "I'm not going anywhere, man." And I've seen what other people have done. They've left here thinking they're getting better jobs, and they're not. They fail. Everyone thinks his big line was, Everyone thinks the grass is greener somewhere else. The grass is damn green in Eugene.
Yeah.
Now, like my wife has a T-shirt now. The grass is damn green in Eugene.
Well, I mean, the Alabama job just looks like a freaking treadmill you can never get off.
Yes.
It's just
no, it's
constant.
a disaster. No one should ever take the Alabama job.
Unless you're 13-0 with a national championship, it is never
and
a
that's
successful.
the minimum expectation.
That's the minimum, yeah. Bare minimum.
Bill Curry, I think, won Coach of the Year at Alabama and got fired for his performance that season.
Yeah.
I heard Bomani Jones making the point that there have been two people who got to walk away from careers at Alabama hailed as successes. and
Bear Bryant and Nick Saban.
Yes, arguably the two greatest football coaches of all time. Mm-hmm. They're the two that survived it, and everyone else got treated like a crash test dummy. Yeah. Either they got a season or two in and went, get me the hell out of here. Like I think Dennis Francione did that. Or they get fired. You win SEC Coach of the Year and get fired. Those are the options.
Yeah.
So Kalen DeBoer, man, I pity the guy.
Yeah, no, it's not going to end well. You
can't lose to Vanderbilt. You cannot lose to Vanderbilt.
No. And if he loses to Auburn, he's done.
Yeah.
He's done.
Yeah. And then good luck finding someone else.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. If you're like, I'd ever have that option. It'd be great to have these kinds of problems. But if you had that option to go there, I think Lanny made the right choice.
Yes. No, absolutely.
And I think the fans up there appreciate, because you still have a fan base that remembers what it was like to be, some of the older fans, what it remembers to be like when you were a nothing.
Oh, yeah. No, when I was in school, they hadn't been to the Rose Bowl since like the 1950s.
Yeah.
And they hadn't been to a bowl game in like my lifetime when I was there. They went to the Independence Bowl in like 93.
Yeah.
And that was their first bowl game in like 20 years or something. It was nuts.
So you still got a significant part of that fan base that remembers what it was like to be nothing.
Yeah.
And they're going to appreciate the success they have now.
Yes.
And you can't buy that.
No. And to have a guy who, has the opportunity to jump to the biggest program in the country and goes, no, I love it here. My family loves it here. Why would I go?
Yeah. At some point, it's just a paycheck at that point. Like, how many more zeros do you need?
Yeah. To have an exponentially worse quality of life.
What's the cost of living in Eugene? It can't be that high.
It's pretty high. It's actually pretty high, but,
it can't be that high.
You can get by on the Oregon football coach's salary.
Probably.
Between Phil Knight, the Nike money, and all that.
Even with inflation?
Yeah. You can compete financially with the Alabamas of the world.
Oh, man.
By the way, my favorite Phil Knight story is when I was still in school. So this is a long time ago. Mm-hmm. They had a massive renovation of the main library on campus. Mm-hmm. Huge improvement. And it was an anonymous donor who made it all possible. And so when it was done, they had a big reveal and show off the library, all the renovations made possible by the anonymous donor. And by the way, it was renamed the Knight Library. I have some guesses who that anonymous donor might have been.
They should have at least knocked off the K. It's the Knight. NIGHT.
Yeah. I think it was, the anonymous donor wanted it named in honor of Phil Knight's mom.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So thanks to that anonymous donor.
I don't want to be known for donating this money, but I damn well want everybody to know who donated this money.
Yes.
That was his instructions.
Yeah. And I mean, that was before the crazy amount of backing that the athletic department got. He did. So I mean, he's backed the rest of the campus too. But yeah,
we'll have to end it there. Anybody for anybody who's still with the podcast, damn.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks.
We'll
Bye.
see you next week.
Thanks for listening. You can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, the Google Store, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. See you next time.